Hi there, and welcome to Talk Story to Me. Today we're going to talk about Sarah Benson's Born of Shadow. I would show you a copy of this book, but I lend a lot of books out, and right now I don't have it with me, but it is definitely a beautiful book from cover to cover, and it's quite enjoyable. So, let's start off with the biases. In this case, I actually don't have any negative biases. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been in love with Egyptology and particularly fond of ancient Egyptian history and mythology. Now, personally, I tended to prefer Norse mythology to Egyptian mythology, but I still really liked ancient Egypt. In fact, I was on a quest as a kid to find books that were set in ancient Egypt or dealt with, the mythology. Now, this was, unfortunately, before the days of the internet, and I lived in a very small town, and there really weren't a lot of fantasy books, actually, as I'm thinking back on it, and I was just racking my brains trying to remember, was there anything? No. Now, if I had found Born of Shadows, I would have been a very, very happy girl. But it didn't exist at that point in time, so at least I get to read it now. My other bias that you should probably know about is I actually know Sarah. She's a fellow member of the Wattpad class of 2014. Absolutely delightful woman. So kind and helpful and really funny. But in fairness, I don't think I'm too biased here because I actually was reading the book before I knew her. And we started talking because she would put these questions at the end of her chapters. And it's one of the cool things about Wattpad is you can communicate with writers and the readers. And the one question I remember that we started talking on, it was something like this. It was, would you rather be killed by a mummy or eaten by scorpions? And mummy all the way. I'm particularly if it's the traditional mummy from those old black and white horror movies, I can outrun him, guarantee it. Being eaten alive by bugs, no. So in many respects, I was really going to like this book, and it's that lovely little storm of elements to make it that perfect read. And not surprisingly, I do love it. But there's good reason for that. So let's get into what it's about. Well, Born of Shadows is primarily about a young woman named Kami, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I realized I did not check. So my apologies if my pronunciations are bad. They often are. Anyway, we'll call her Kami. I think that might be more accurate. Kami turns 17 years old, and she receives a mysterious package. Now, this mysterious package has a mysterious artifact and a ticket to Egypt. Oh, I would have loved to have gotten that for my 17th birthday. Anyway, Kami is supposed to go and meet her estranged grandparents. She really doesn't know that much about her father's side of the family, and her situation with her mom. Her mom is not the healthiest of individuals, and so Kami has had to grow up before she was supposed to. She kind of reminds me of that Kelly Clarkson song, Because of You. So Kami gets on a plane and meets a handsome young stranger who I personally thought was the villain. It might be because I'm cynical. It might be because I'm always on the lookout for villains. Who knows? But you read it and make your decision. And when she gets to this airport in Egypt, she discovers no one's there to pick her up. In fact, this starts a series of odd disappearances, and it's really quite frustrating for her, understandably so. I would be frustrated if I got to Egypt and found that my family was missing as well. However, it's not just that. See, there's also these strange shadow creatures lurking about, and you know what? They're pretty creepy. So you've got shadow creatures, you've got Egyptian culture, and a lot of Egyptian locations. And I'll get into Sarah Benson's ability to describe the traveling aspect of it. Hello, Thor. To describe this without making it bogged down. But anyway, there's also some great secondary characters, and probably my favorite character, just every time she comes on the page, even though, well, she's not Kami, Thor, thank you. That is really not helpful. He can't stand it to not be in the center of attention. Okay, that's right. Down you go. Go away. I'm doing a review right now. And seriously, he was sleeping. He waited until I put this camera on to come over. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. There are some additional mysteries going on that are actually linked to, like, Alexander the Great. So really, there are so many goodies in here because Sarah knows her stuff. If you like ancient Egyptian history, and all of these fantastic little puzzles and mysteries and suspense, you're really gonna like this. And it's still very readable. Anyway, the purpose behind looking for Alexander the Great's remains is because this other character is convinced it will help her to become a god. You know, everyone has their hobby. And I have to tell you, my favorite character in this is Zaina. Again, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly. Just a very compelling character. Every time she's on the page and as you're getting her backstory, just pulls in your attention. Now, one of the things that I mentioned before was, you know, this is a book that involves a lot of travel, and you can tell Sarah loves traveling. And oftentimes when authors write about exotic locations or places that are different from your average run-of-the-mill setting, like New York City or Los Angeles, they are tempted to just slide into great lengths of detail. You know, if you read some of the classics like The Mysteries of Udolpho, Bram Stoker's Dracula, even Tolkien's The Two Towers, and actually pretty much all of Tolkien's work, there are pages upon pages upon pages of descriptions of the location. You know, you find out about how the grass is growing, how tall the mountains are, what color the sky is, all of this stuff. And that was for a very particular reason. When these books were popular, people didn't travel as much. They experienced the world through books. And people had a longer attention span because this was their entertainment. And often authors, particularly authors releasing their first books, and this is Sarah Benson's first officially published novel, they slide into this tendency to over-describe things. But she doesn't. She actually just has this nice, succinct way of describing it and letting you visualize it. And there seems to be very much an awareness of what the reader would already know. And she trusts that you're smart. You can figure out, you know, some of the things like, oh, Egypt's sandy. You know, surprise, there's sand in places. I mean, it's a very nice interweaving of the details and bringing in those specific elements that you need to visualize the scene. Her descriptions on a whole, the characters are memorable, was definitely invested in them. I tend to think that my distrust of Liam is more personal than anything that she really indicates. And hello, Thor, this is really not helpful. You can go now. Come on now. That's enough. Anyway, my only complaint about this book is it ended. I really didn't want it to be over, you know? And as all things must come to an end. But fortunately, the adventure isn't done. She I confirmed with her, she is continuing this book into the Shadow Wars series. So we're going to get to see more of these shadow creatures and of course Cammy and her friends, and it's going to be a great ride. She is currently posting the sequel, The Bloodstone Prophecy, on Wattpad as well. And if you look down in the description section, I'm going to include information on her Wattpad page, her Amazon, and her other places where you can get these books and read them. So I highly recommend it. Light, fast reading, some intense scenes, nicely handled. There's great action flow. You're not going to be bored, and you're going to get to see some pretty cool places in Egypt, as well as some pretty compelling and suspenseful sequences in these places. So all in all, highly recommend. get a copy. And if you have any other books that you've enjoyed, or if you've read this one, let me know what you think. I have a list of books right now, as well as some movies that I'm planning on reviewing, but I'm more than happy to take recommendations. So thanks so much. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be talking story again soon. Bye. Say goodbye to the camera, Thor. Yeah. Oh, you're following the pencil. Okay. Go get it.